A.E. Housman wrote, "Tomorrow comes December, and winter falls of old are with me from the past." Hello once again, I'm Don Jackson with the heartbeat of the internet. J.B. Priestley said, "The first fall of snow is not only an event, but it is a magical event. You go to bed in one kind of a world and wake up to find yourself in another quite different. And if this is not enchantment, then where is it to be found?" End quote. And all that magic really is one snowflake falling with another. But its weight can be deceiving. Just ask anyone who has ever had to shovel a sidewalk or driveway. I have the weigh scales out. I'm going to try to determine the weight of a single snowflake before it melts. The snow lay jaundiced under the yard light, and the shadow of the house lamp-black across the snow, unbroken save for a single skewed rectangle glowing at its core. Light from the kitchen window. Flakes of snow were captured there, drifting earthward like ash. An excerpt from the chapter titled "A Thin Sigh," from the story of Edgar Sawtelle, a novel by David Wroblewski. A snow crystal is characteristically a six-sided structure, but you'd have to hold it up real close to see that pattern. The Reader's Digest book, Why in the World? Everything you always wanted to know about the world around you, but may never have thought to ask, describes the process of making a snowflake. And I quote, "Each flake that falls may come from a million tiny supercooled droplets of water, which, as ice crystals, link up in a lacy network. Each flake holds more air than snow, which is why snowflakes sometimes drift so daintily to the ground. This also accounts for the lightness of freshly fallen snow." End quote. Really? I've come into the house on many occasions after shoveling with a very sore back. Karen McCosker wrote, "Winter came early this year. That's why under my duvet I'm wondering about feathers. The way some things so insubstantial, so hardly there, can make all the difference." Snowflakes are silent when they fall, unless they're trapped in a blizzard, and even then it's still the wind that howls. Adrian Levy from Rainbows, Roses, and Butterflies wrote, "Everything is equal in the snow. All trees, all lawns, all rooftops, all streets, all cars. Everything is white, white, white as far as you can see. Covered by snow, the neglected lawns look the same. The snow hides the shiny newness of a just-bought car as effectively as it does the rust and dents of a 10-year-old one. Everything looks clean and fresh and unmarred by time or use. Snow, like the silent death it counterfeits, is a great leveler." End quote. James A. Michener, in The Fires of Spring, published by Random House, had a similar thought in mind. And I quote, "In the country, snow is merely an additional adornment. But in a city, it is for brief moments until traffic and soot engulf it, the most beautiful dress that nature ever wears. It clothes the drabness, and it hushes the strident noise. It erases the architect's willful blunders, and it hides away the garbage. It brings an absolute beauty to the shapes of tall buildings and makes serene the drunken lurchings of mean old houses that should have been torn down long since. And when, in addition to all this, 1,000 electric stars play upon it, throwing ghostly banners upon its placid surface, a new fallen city snow is a thing of perfect beauty. A whisper of snow touched the cold window. The vast house creaked in a wind from nowhere. The opening lines from The Wish by Ray Bradbury. If a snowflake has very little weight, then the sound it makes must be less than a whisper. And it was the snow softly whispering out there, or was it the past? Accumulations of old time and need, despairs mounting themselves to panics, and at last finding tongue? This is a world of extremes. On the one hand, we have almost incalculable weight all around us. The mountains, the oceans, the skyscrapers, heavy trucks, ocean-going vessels, and trains. Do you have any idea how much the world weighs? Well, we can't put it on a weigh scale, but someone did figure it out. It weighs 5.9736 times 1,024 kilograms. Trust me, it is a very large number. It is also interesting to note that the Earth is getting 50,000 tons lighter every year, even though 40,000 tons of space dust is piling up on us. At the far end of the scale is something as light as a feather or the weight of a single snowflake. Generally, we never give the weight of all that is around us any second thought at all, unless it's the pounds we are adding to our own weight. Now, this is a good example of how we might try to avoid a weighty issue. In ancient times, a king had a boulder placed on a roadway. Then he hid himself and watched to see if anyone would remove the huge rock. Some of the king's wealthiest merchants and courtiers came by and simply walked around it. Many loudly blamed the king for not keeping the roads clear, but none did anything about getting the stone out of the way. Then a peasant came along carrying a load of vegetables. Upon approaching the boulder, the peasant laid down his burden and tried to move the stone to the side of the road. After much pushing and straining, he finally succeeded. After the peasant picked up his load of vegetables, he noticed a purse lying in the road where the boulder had been. The purse contained many gold coins and a note from the king indicating that the gold was for the person who removed the boulder from the roadway. The peasant learned what many of us never understand. Every obstacle presents an opportunity to improve our condition. An anonymous writer in Bits and Pieces wrote, "One day, a small boy tried to lift a heavy stone, but couldn't budge it. His father, watching, finally said, 'Are you positive that you're using all your strength?' 'Yes, I am,' the boy cried. 'No, you're not,' said the father. 'You haven't asked me to help you.'" I I watched a very interesting documentary on the National Geographic Channel the other night concerning how we perceive time. In the past, we believed that time moved like the flow of a river. In the documentary, the scientist who was the host was suggesting maybe that river would be better described as frozen in place, with every single moment from the past, present, and future already in place. And someone else had a similar thought. This is an excerpt from A Winter's Tale by Mark Halperin, and I quote, "Nothing is random, nor will anything ever be, whether a long string of perfectly blue days that begin and end in golden dimness, the most seemingly chaotic political acts, the rise of a great city, the crystalline structure of a gem that has never seen the light, the distributions of fortune, what time the milkman gets up, the position of the electron, or the occurrence of one astonishingly frigid winter after another. Even electrons, supposedly the paragons of unpredictability, are tame and obsequious little creatures that rush around at the speed of light, going precisely where they are supposed to go. They make faint whistling sounds that, when apprehended in varying combinations, are as pleasant as the winds flying through a forest, and they do exactly as they are told. Of this, one can be certain. And yet there is a wonderful anarchy in that the milkman chooses when to arise. The rat picks the tunnel into which he will dive when the subway comes rushing down the track from Burrow Hill, and the snowflake will fall as it will. How can this be? If nothing is random and everything is predetermined, how can there be free will? The answer to that is simple. Nothing is predetermined. It is determined, or was determined, or will be determined. No matter, it all happened at once, in less than an instant. And time was invented because we cannot comprehend in one glance the enormous and detailed canvas that we have been given. So we track it in linear fashion, piece by piece. Time, however, can be easily overcome, not by chasing light, but by standing back far enough to see it all at once. The universe is still and complete. Everything that ever was is. Everything that ever will be is, and so on in all possible combinations. Though in perceiving it, we imagine that it is in motion and unfinished. It is quite finished and quite astonishingly beautiful. In the end, or rather as things really are, any event, no matter how small, is intimately and sensibly tied to all others. All rivers run full to the sea. Those who are apart are brought together. The lost ones are redeemed. The dead come back to life. The perfectly blue days that have begun and ended in golden dimness continue immobile and accessible. And when all is perceived in such a way as to obviate time, justice becomes apparent, not as something that will be, but as something that is. According to New Scientist, and I quote, "During the northern winter, the weight of snow and ice on the northern continents deforms the Earth slightly, pushing the crust down and making the southern hemisphere bulge out. The deformation can be as much as a few centimeters in the far north." End quote. So you can see that ice can have tremendous weight, especially when it builds up on our roofs. Snow, too, can have weight when it piles up, but it takes a lot of snowflakes. 10 inches of snow covering an acre of land weighs about 226,000 pounds. Someone figured it all out. If there's a layer 10 inches deep and you clear a sidewalk that's 5 feet wide and 50 feet long, you might be lifting and tossing as much as 1,300 pounds of snow. Shovel your neighbor's walk and you've lifted a ton or more. According to one website, Archimedes' Notebook, someone once determined that an individual snowflake weighs 0.02 grams. At that weight, it would take 50 flakes to make a gram. For comparison, a Hershey's Kiss weighs 4.7 grams, equal to about 235 snowflakes. There are about 95 kisses in a pound. Using the Kiss to Snow crystal calculator, that comes to 22,325 snowflakes per pound. And obviously, old snow weighs more than a fresh fall of snow. Try to figure out a way to actually weigh one or more snowflakes if you can. I believe there is a way. Now, that's all very academic, but there is another way to look at all this, and that's next. Finally, A Tale for All Seasons by Kurt Cowder. He writes, "Tell me the weight of a snowflake," a coal mouse asked a wild dove. "Nothing more than nothing," was the answer. "In that case, I must tell you a marvelous story," the coal mouse said. "I sat on the branch of a fir, close to its trunk, when it began to snow. Not heavily, not in a raging blizzard, no, just like a dream, without a sound and without any violence. Since I did not have anything better to do, I counted the snowflakes settling on the twigs and needles of my branch. Their number was exactly 3,741,952. When the 3,741,953rd dropped onto the branch, nothing more than nothing, as you say, the branch broke off. Having said that, the coal mouse flew away. The dove, since Noah's time and authority on the matter, thought about the story for a while and finally said to herself, perhaps there is only one person's voice lacking for peace to come to the world. End quote. Something to consider during this holiday season. Peace on earth, goodwill to men and women. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.